How to detect that you feel illusorily free. The human perception of freedom inhabits a space of paradox and uncertainty that essentially reflects the fundamental principles of quantum physics. This study explores the intersection between consciousness, audiovisual narrative, and the detection of illusory states of freedom, proposing a methodological framework that merges quantum poetics with microlearning techniques. Freedom, as an existential concept, operates under superposition principles similar to those described by quantum physics. Just as a particle can exist simultaneously in multiple states until observed, our perception of freedom collapses into specific narratives when examined by consciousness. This wave-particle duality of human thought allows us to inhabit spaces of apparent autonomy while operating under conditions determined by external and internal factors that are often invisible. The illusion of freedom is not merely a perceptual error, but an emergent phenomenon of conscious complexity. At the intersection between the observing self and the observed, the space arises where we can detect these illusory states through specific narrative techniques. Isn't our perception of autonomy similar to the behavior of entangled particles, where apparent independence hides a deep causal interconnection? This existential entanglement constitutes the first indication of our illusory freedom, manifesting as seemingly independent decisions that respond to collective patterns. The ability to tell an engaging story with deep emotional components not only captures attention but also facilitates the recognition of these patterns. Narrative structure acts as an existential interferometer, revealing the interferences between what we perceive as free choice and the predetermined patterns of our behavior. The classic three-act model, introduction, development, and resolution, provides a framework for examining our own narratives of freedom. When we structure our experience in these terms, we can identify inconsistencies that suggest states of illusory freedom. The presentation of the problem reveals unquestioned assumptions. The development of the conflict exposes conditioned responses. The resolution reveals recurring patterns rather than true transformations. This narrative structure, applied to self-examination, allows us to distinguish between authentic creative freedom and conditioned behavior disguised as choice. Can a quantum particle know that it is determined by the wave function that describes it? Similarly, can we recognize the limits of our freedom while operating within them? The brevity of these formats demands a distillation of concepts that paradoxically allows for a deeper exploration of existential complexity. Isn't emotion the collapse of our mental wave functions, forcing us to inhabit a specific state? The emotional narrative, then, becomes a tool for quantum observation of one's own being. The fragmented perception of one's own freedom constitutes a primary sign of illusory states. This fragmentation manifests itself in the inability to maintain a coherent narrative about one's decisions, where each choice seems disconnected from a unifying purpose. Between the gaps of our fragmented attention lies the invisible thread that connects what we think we choose with what has been imposed on us. Where does your original thought end and the echo of other voices begin? The protagonist who overcomes obstacles within a three-act narrative serves as a metaphor for the process of detecting illusory states of freedom. His journey represents the transition from perceived freedom to the recognition of invisible limits, and finally to a more authentic redefinition of autonomy. Can a fictional character become aware of his predetermined nature? Like quantum particles that cannot escape their fundamental wave function, our decisions operate within limits that we can only perceive through intensive observation. True freedom may not lie in the absence of determinations, but in the ability to consciously inhabit the superposition.